Hello, welcome to day 3 of the Nature Connection Challenge. I've just carried out my session for the Big Garden Birdwatch, which was an hour sitting in the garden in a sort of inconspicuous corner, just watching the birds that actually landed in the garden, so I couldn't count the mallard that very noisily flew overhead. Just counting the maximum number of species or maximum number of any one species that I could see at a given time. And it's a really great way to help wildlife so that they know what the general patterns are year on year. This happens every year at the end of January, and so they can get a picture of which birds are doing well, which birds are not doing quite so well, and perhaps build up changes that are happening with climate change, with disease, and general sort of habitat loss and things. They can work out what's working, maybe what's becoming very successful, and what things are maybe needing addressing. So it's a really good way that you can actually give back to our wild nature. So I'd highly recommend getting involved in that. There are lots of these citizen science projects. There's lots coming through from Buzz Club, who you can look up online. There's a light pollution one in February where you count the number of stars that you can see at night. And with No Mo May, counting the flowers from where you've let the lawn grow a bit longer. And the butterfly count, there's quite a few of these. Some of them that you can do by looking at photos and things going through the year and help with identifying whether there are, for example, walrus in the picture. And some of these give a bit more training than others. But yeah, lots and lots of ways to get involved, lots and lots of ways to get the kids involved and really engage with nature. So yeah, really great way to give back and do something for nature. But I have to say, from a personal perspective, maybe it's not the same for everybody, but I find it takes me out of that real sense of nature connectedness and of being a part of the wider nature rather than, I'm kind of as a separate observer, almost like a hunter. It reminds me of a time we had a sparrowhawk came into the garden and sat right by the bird feeder. And those birds were very aware of the sparrowhawk. They were alarming all over the place. So there was a connection of sorts, but it perhaps it's not the kind of connection that I was sort of hoping for. And I find this when I go bird watching as well, that there's a sense of being apart from. Whereas when you're actually sitting and just being part of things, and the birds come and go, but there's no objective, there's no goal. You're just allowing whatever you experience. Then there's a real connection, and because you're still, and because you're not in a big group and those sorts of things, you're not talking. There's a sense of really being accepted and being a part of. And it's quite different. So that's the first thing that I would say. That's just my experience. It might well be different for different people, and there definitely is a pathway to nature connectedness through compassion and doing things for nature. But where I'd consider litter picking and conservation activities and things to be a part of that, again. It's actually the felt experience of that compassion. It's the felt experience of that connection where I feel connected. I have to work quite hard with the litter picking. I have to think of the animals in the oceans that I'm stopping from getting plastic in their stomachs by picking up the litter. I have to work quite hard to feel the nature connection in that situation. What I do find with birds is that getting to know your own patch and getting to know the birds in your on your patch, their songs, which you could maybe pick up about 5 or 6 of them, and just learn those. Start with those because they're the ones that you'll hear all the time. Learn their songs, learn their sort of alarm calls and things as well is very good. And quite often you can pick them up by seeing them and hearing them at the same time. Some of them maybe less so. Sort of wrens hidden away, you'll hear the calls, but you won't necessarily see them. And that really opens up a complete world. That you're really, really getting to know them. You're getting to know their behaviours, and you're getting to know what's called the jizz, your sort of general impression of them. So actually, you know that it's a blue tit or a robin, even from a very brief glimpse, just because you've seen how high up they are, whether they're heading into a bush or the top of a tree, or running across the ground, and just their general way of moving, their general kind of demeanour. It's things you can't really put into words, but as you get to know them, you get a real sense of them. And so there's a kind of knowing, and then that might be backed up by then hearing their call or something. But it's like getting to know family members. In the same way, there's that kind of familiarity. And I found, particularly during lockdown, just walking around the same patch, there were some birds where the particular species, there were lots of different territories, so that you could hear birds of that species throughout the walk. And then there were other birds who were clearly defined to particular territories. And what was amazing was it got to the point where I could walk the walk with my eyes shut simply by hearing the birds. And, I knew where I was along the path corresponding to those various territories. It only works sort of around the springtime when they're all singing away. But it really, just have this sense. But even in the garden, so although that sort of works really well in a bigger patch, sort of going out for a walk, but even in the garden, I know just over there's a holly tree, and that's the favourite perch of the blackbird. Sometimes a little bit further away near the birch tree. Across the back, there's the song thrush. Sometimes there's a green woodpecker as well, but not in the past couple of years. And the trees as well, where the redwing going to. On top of the shed, we have goldfinch come in, and they love the lilac tree. And then later in the year, they'll be dancing around on the dandelion stems, which always seems amazing that they're so light that a dandelion stem will take them. And sometimes the long-tailed tits will come into another lilac tree or into the apple tree, and you just had this sense, it's a large flock comes in, and their sort of calls and everything. There's a real character to them, so it's as much as the way that they're interacting with each other. So I hope that's kind of given you a flavour of the ways that you can connect with birds, and how just by repeatedly just building that relationship, getting out, getting to know them. And these are all really, really common birds. It's not about going and trying to find sort of birds that I've never seen before. This is about getting to know the birds that I see and hear every day. This is my local family, and just by repeatedly doing it, you gradually build up a picture. I will post some links to some really useful resources, some things about the citizen science, and also there's some great videos to help you to learn some of the bird song that you might be able to hear near you. Take care, and I'll be back tomorrow.